Listener discretion is advised.
The opinions expressed on this podcast are those of the individuals, and they do not reflect any official view of the United Steelworkers, USW Local 105, or its officers or sub-board members for officers. Now, from the banks of the mighty Mississippi, this is Steel Revolution.
Hello, podcast listeners, and welcome to Steel Revolution 84.
8-4.
I'm Roy Hutt.
Brad Grieve.
Mike Nicholas.
Shawn Geis is with no headphones. It's alright, though.
What happened to my headphones?
He's not crying about it.
No, he's not at all. November 3rd is Election Day. We encourage everybody to get out and vote.
Thank you to everybody that has already voted.
So we got some people out for the International. They're out there giving literature or dropping literature at doors right now.
Educating the membership.
Yep.
That's right. And then to go along with that, if you are an Iowa resident, for Iowa residents who choose to vote, the company will follow the state of Iowa laws that pertain to employee voting. Employees who choose to vote will be required to provide the company 24-hour written notice prior to Election Day. Requests that do not meet the 24-hour notice may be approved at the company's discretion. So I think what in Iowa might only affect if you're going to...
It only affects the 12-hour schedule that starts at 7 a.m. and does not conclude till 7 p.m. If we were working overtime, it's possible that the 7223 or a Monday through Friday day shift, if you had 4 hours extended, you were forced scheduled 4 over, or that'd be about it. So not a lot out there, but if you have questions, give me a call.
For Illinois residents who choose to vote and are on the 6 to 6 schedule that day, and assuming today's polling times, the company will allow you 1 hour of excused unpaid time off from 5 p.m. to 6 p.m. for voting. Should polling times change, the company will look at the situation again. Employees who choose to vote will be required to provide the company 24-hour written notice prior to the election day. Requests that do not meet that 24-hour requirement will be approved at the company's discretion. Again, for the Illinois residents at contract time, this is things that I read are out of the local issues that were in the forerunner. At contract time, company said they're in Illinois. We're an Iowa-based company. We don't have to follow Illinois law. However, we did get them to at least let the Illinois residents off and follow the Illinois law, except for the paid piece of the time. So, it was important to include that, and it was important to give the residents that option, Illinois residents or Illinois members. But unfortunately, by the time everything wrapped up with local issues, this is what we ended up with. A reminder: elections have consequences. We'll be discussing what's on the ballot for workers with the Iowa Federation of Labor President Charlie Wishman later in the podcast. So to move on to some local news. Local. The plate mill will see a reduction of 24 employees. Currently, there is a bid up for some of the regular 8-hour shift departments, so two openings in the storeroom and 1 oiler.
And all of the people have been contacted, and they know what departments they'll be going to. Most everybody will be moving on November 9th, but there are some that are being held to the next shift change in the plate mill, and they will move on January 11th.
So if you do not hear from your new departments here shortly, I would say next week, get a hold of your committeemen, reach out, and we'll get in touch with whoever we need to get in touch with to let them know where to be, when you're starting, and all that. On the VSW front, we filed a grievance on the handling of the VSW program. That grievance has been held at 2nd level, then moved on and heard at 3rd level, without the company providing us a 2nd level answer. we still continue to work with the company on corrections, and we are currently awaiting the third level answer. We also filed a grievance on the employment security language, believing that quit packages are needed to be offered to bring laid off employees back to work to fill those spots.
Yeah, and on this grievance, I mean, if you look at that language, it allows for people to attain the 2-year requirement. So we believed the people should be able to return to work if we have people that want to voluntarily quit. And that's what our grievance. We had 12 people attain the 2 years in October 14th. There will be laid off people attaining that 2 years each month as we go forward. So that's the union's position. The company has denied it at first level. We've heard it at second. So we'll be following that through the process.
On the COVID front, cases in our community continue to be on the rise. On September 19th, there were 269 people hospitalized in Iowa. And then jump forward to October 21st, and the daily record of deaths went up to 31 deaths in the same day, but the hospitalizations that same day went up to 534. So the hospitals here in Iowa, and I know even in our area from talking to some people that work at local hospitals, are getting stressed right now with the influx of people going into the hospital. With that being said, we still have mass gators down here at the hall. We've got new gators coming in. That's a thicker material. And
A little bit thicker material and moisture wicking. They'll be a little bit more expensive, but we've got them coming hopefully within the next week.
Yeah, I don't recall seeing the extra face mask up at the center gate anymore, some of the old ones that were there, but if you forgot yours, either ask at the screening or go to center gate and pick up a mask before you come into the plant.
And we are now at 117 cases.
117, yep.
Oh, there's a new one.
We just, Rolling had another one on D crew, just reported right now.
So 117 positives in the plant. You know, like we said last time, levels are up in the community, and we're with a workforce of over 2,000 people. It's going to go up at work too. You know, important, if you're sick, stay home. We don't want to spread it to our co-workers. And then under the new policy, if you do not follow the mask rules or physical distancing rules, there's a chance on whether or not you might get paid underneath that policy. So make sure we're doing what we can to protect ourselves and follow that. New mask policy enforcement began, and social. You know, please make sure with that you're social distancing, wiping down your PCs and break areas, and using hand sanitizer. Let's say this, and we can have a discussion here with the bargaining reps here in the room. But to me, look at this situation. We got a lot of people on either side of this issue coming to us, voicing their concerns one way or the other. You got people that want every measure taken to protect people. You got other people that want to, hey, if I get it, I get it. I don't care. I don't care about wiping stuff down. I don't care about wearing a mask. I'm just gonna do whatever, and I don't want anything. So, you know, they got people that certainly cheered when the company started the screening, and we can debate on whether or not that's good or not. But I think some of the things we can agree on. We all know that this virus is deadly, and I'm sure we've known, you know, at least a person, whether it's in our family, whether it's at work, that's either passed away from it, or people that have been hospitalized, you know, very, very sick, or even so sick they've been hospitalized or on a ventilator. I know there's a few people out there that have that. And with knowing all of that, you know, we've got members or our brothers and sisters that are at high risk, there's one thing. We've got their family members that could be, and a little bit down the line is protecting our livelihoods here. You know, when a whole area goes down or has the potential to go down, in a flow path where we actually have work right now, it's not good for the business. Ultimately, not good for anybody's long-term employment if we lose customers because we can't get stuff out the door because we don't have people here. So, with all that being said, I believe the current policy that's out there is one that's kind of right in the middle. It requires you to wear a mask, to social distance. If you can't be, wear a mask if you're not within, or if you're within 6 feet of somebody. Make sure you're social distancing. The stuff to clean areas are out there. But on the same time, for people that don't want to wear a mask, just stay 6 feet away. You don't have to wear a mask. So, it's not as restrictive of having a policy where it's a 24/7 mask mandate. And
That's the point, Roy. Exactly what you just said. I mean, the company has a right to write a PPE rule. We sat down and discussed it with them. They were at one end. We were somewhere at the other. You have to wear it coming into the plant to the PPE line. From there on out, if you don't like wearing it, make sure you're staying 6 feet away. I mean, look, we've talked to OSHA, we've talked to the Department of Labor. Nobody's going to write a standard on this. So the company has a right to set a PPE rule. We just have to work with the company and go from there. So, again, like Roy said, if you don't like it, wear it coming in, stay 6 feet apart, then you don't have to worry about it.
Yep, I think that says it all. I mean, we should have some respect for each other, and everybody has their own opinion. I'm glad to hear people's opinion, but we have a rule, just like every other rule out there, and if the company chooses to enforce it, then so be it. My one caveat is I don't have any use for them using cameras and then just handing out discipline. So, I mean, we do have our local issue. If they can, unfortunately, they believe they can use the camera and then investigate, and tying the two together is good enough for them. My thing is, in the plant proper is where we should be focused, and we should be able to respect each other enough to protect each other and ourselves when we're coming in and out of the plant. So this thing isn't going away anytime soon, and there's other things that we're pushing on them out there with break areas and things to make sure we have things available for our people. We're looking at a ventilation standard and trying to make sure that where we have people in buildings and pulpits, that we have a way to exchange that air, but we don't want to dump the air on somebody else either. So, and then again, like Roy said, I mean, it's a mirror image out in the community. I mean, we all have kids and things going places, coming home. We may go visit grandparents or whatever, and so this thing's going to move around out there, and then we end up bringing it in here. I mean, flu season's coming, and it's not going away, so let's do what we can do.
Yeah. Do what you need to do for yourself, for your family, for your job. I mean, do whatever it is you need to do, and I know Brad's brought it up multiple times. If it's up to us, and Brad mentioned too, it's up to us to do what we need to do, whether it's cleaning or whatever, our PCs, and it's also up to us to push the company if there needs to be improvements and things. So I would encourage you, don't just say, well, this isn't right or this isn't right. If you need to move stuff or open up different areas for breaks or whatever, bring that up to your committeemen. Let's get it in front of the department managers, and let's make them do what needs to be done for everybody.
Yep.
Update on the United Way. We tried a new process that was going up to the cafeteria, filling out your forms, and then giving everybody that gives a battery charger. We went through 2 weeks of that. Don't think it really got communicated real good down to the floor or didn't have much support. So as of right now, I think Marguerite's going to get some information out. There should be some blank forms up at Center Gate Security. If people want to make changes, fill out a blank form. There's a tub underneath the counter in the cabinet. You can put your forms in there. We'll pick them up. We'll get them to the United Way. The battery chargers for everybody that rolled over, you'll be getting a battery charger. There's labels on them. We're going to work with the committeemen and that and the departments next week to get them out and start distributing them to you folks that gave with the rollover.
So I'll just say thanks for everybody that's helped out with the United Way. I know our community, there's a lot of need out there again this year, especially with this COVID. We have 154 people laid off, and thankfully that's all, but that's the impact on those families. And we know there's others out there that haven't been able to continue working through this and have had layoff time and things like that. So we have the Toys for Tots for the veterans group out there at the plant will be Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday next week. There will be buckets at the gates. On Friday, we will follow up with the Christmas basket boxes to go out for collection, and the form should go out there on Monday the 9th for the request forms. We are going to work a way to get at least offer all the laid off families a basket, and then we'll have our normal people offering sponsoring somebody in the community to get a basket for them. So the collection boxes basically will be out from the 6th of November to the 1st of December. There will be somebody come around in the departments to follow up on that to make sure everybody has an opportunity to give. Thursday, December 17th will be the day we'll pack them, but this year, unfortunately, we won't be able to open it up and have the big traditional group come over there and pack them in 30 minutes. We're going to have to do something different, set it up, and then we'll have our committee and the plant lead team. We'll figure out a way to do that. We may be asking a few people to come over and help, but we're going to have to keep the numbers down. Friday will look the same, so everything will be picked up on Friday starting at 5:30 in the morning and wrapping up at 6:30 p.m. So hopefully everybody will give, and we'll get up to around 600 again this year, and 600 baskets, and hopefully we can fill the need in the community. So thanks again.
So you're saying you're going to be working this year and not just hunting news cameras down?
Yeah, I'm gonna fit right in there, Roy.
I'll believe it when I see it.
Reminder to the membership, the Nathaniel Payne Memorial Scholarship forms will be due December 4th. You can pick up the forms here at the hall and fill them out and turn them in.
And just a reminder, the person that you're filling it out for has to already be in school, not getting ready to start or starting next fall. They have to be in school already.
And how many are we handing out, Mike? And then how many does Accentra help us out with?
We're going to do 500, and Accentra is matching us, so there will be 10 $500 scholarships.
Continued support for this local from Accentra Credit Union.
Yep.
So appreciate it. Anybody?
Take a break.
That was it. Yeah, we'll take a break and play interview with Charlie Wishman. So it is a little long, but I believe it's well worth it. It'll give you no matter who you're voting for, it'll give you an insight on some of the things that have happened with the politicians in power, whether it be Governor Reynolds or President Trump, and what's happened to some of the other places in that affect your day-to-day life or could outside of the normal issues. Be right back. All right, we welcome back to the podcast Charlie Wishman, president of the Iowa Federation of Labor. First off, Charlie, congratulations on becoming president.
Oh, well, thank you very much. Really appreciate it. But I got to say that I have, over the years, had a lot of great union leaders and mentors and members to learn from. And nobody gets anywhere on their own, and that is entirely what the labor movement's all about. Learning and coming up under Ken Sager here at the Iowa Federation of Labor, I couldn't have asked for a better mentor and a teacher, plus all of our affiliates, leaders, and as well as the leaders of the labor federations. It's been a really fantastic group to work with for the past 9 years or so since I've been here at the state federation, and I think going forward we got a really bright future.
Well, with just 4 days remaining until the election, we hope to learn by this discussion with you what's on the ballot for workers this election. I guess let's go ahead and start with safety. Do you see safety for workers being on the ballot this election? I ask in part because of what seems to be not much of a response by the federal or state OSHA in response to protections or PPE standards in response to the coronavirus. You know, I'm thinking of the meat packing or say the brothers and sisters working in corrections.
Yeah, and it goes so much further than just corrections and meatpacking, but I think that the COVID-19 pandemic has really brought to light a lot of failings that have been going on with OSHA and with health and safety. And, I think one of the most important things that this governor could have done, and what the federal government could have done also, is to set a pandemic standard or a infectious disease standard that's actually enforceable. And there have been, that is definitely something that's on the ballot. Whether we're talking about for president, that is a clear difference between Vice President Biden and President Trump. Vice President Biden does want there to be a infectious disease standard within OSHA. And when it comes to the bills that get passed in Congress, part of these pandemic response bills that get passed, there has been in there, and the U.S. Senate has refused to take them up. Part of what has been in there is actually having that infectious disease standard. So it's really, really important that not only is it just a change at the presidential level to make sure that we're keeping workers safe, but flipping the United States Senate, and in Iowa that means helping to elect Teresa Greenfield, who is all on board with making sure that we have safe workplaces and that we make sure that we're taking care of our workers. As far as I know, Teresa Greenfield is the only person I know that's actually stepped foot in a packing plant since all of this started. Somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, but I have yet to see Joni Ernst come anywhere near a packing plant. I think whether it's her, Governor Reynolds, them just calling up the management there and asking how it's going is sufficient to them. With Teresa, she actually wants to go and talk to workers and see what can be done better.
Hey, Charlie, I mean, we talked about the federal stuff, and I know Teresa as a senator, but a lot of this stuff, and we don't have the option of booting Reynolds right now, but even in the state, we have a state OSHA, so, I mean, we can do some things here in the state if we can get some people back in our state legislator to help us out too.
Yeah, you're entirely correct, Brad. One of the avenues that even if the governor doesn't want to go along with it, we can enact emergency rules through the rulemaking process, through a rules committee at the state legislature to make OSHA uh, actually have a infectious disease standard. And you know, I'm saying this because it's important that we get ahead of this. You know, it's one thing to say, you know, nobody saw this coming back in, you know, last year, or nobody saw it coming at the beginning of this year that there would be a pandemic. But I think it's become pretty clear to folks now um, that this is probably not the last. It's not the first. It's the first wide one that's as widespread and deadly. But this is not the last infectious disease that we're going to have to deal with in our workplaces. So it is imperative. It's incredibly important that we actually address these issues now before it becomes an issue again. Not just to deal with the crisis that we're dealing with now, but also to have something in place for the next thing that's coming, because I wish we could say there'll never be another pandemic that'll ever come to the United States, but I don't think I don't think there's a person right now that can say that they'd guarantee that wouldn't happen.
Yeah, and when we think about safety at the workplace, Charlie, I always think about workers' compensation and what's happened in the past with the gutting of protections, especially with shoulder injuries. Do you see anything else coming up in the future on the work comp front?
So I think that when we're looking at the Iowa House and Iowa Senate right now, you know, I like to say that, you know, my crystal ball was broken a long time ago as far as making predictions. But if I were to make a prediction right now, I would say that I think that the Iowa House has a very good chance of going Democratic. And I think that they would listen to us when it comes to making changes on workers' compensation or changes to Chapter 20, or you name it, all of the really bad things that have happened over the past few years in regards to labor law. Now, the Iowa Senate is going to be a much tougher road to gain a majority in. It doesn't mean that that's impossible, but it's going to be a lot tougher to get there just because of the way the numbers work out. So when it comes to either, you know, rolling back some of this legislation or even repealing it, remember that we have got separate branches of government, and we can pass all kinds of things. However, even if the Senate were to go in a worker-friendly way, we still have Governor Reynolds there that can veto it. So, you know, a lot of this may come down to chipping away at these things and chipping away at them in a very deliberate way. And maybe we're going to have some very hard asks of people who we have supported in these elections to say, look, when it comes to budget negotiation times, you know, you're going to have to negotiate really tough. You're going to have to maybe hold out on some things that are, you know, who knows what the future is going to bring, but we may have to go about fixing, whether it's workers' compensation and making sure that people get fair compensation for their shoulder injury or whatever. It may mean that we have to go about this in some different and creative ways than just passing a bill in the typical way and having the governor sign it or not.
Yeah, and what a difference does it make the who you got or who you've elected? Because you look at you know, our neighbors across the river in Illinois, and Governor Pritzker over there said, well, if you get COVID-19, we're going to presume you get it at work, and it can be a work comp. Here it's presumed you didn't get it at work here in Iowa. So a big difference that makes.
Yeah, it makes a huge difference, and there was there was a liability bill that was passed in the legislature took a pause from March until June. And then when they came back in June, they passed this COVID liability bill that gave immunity to a lot of corporations and gave immunity to just a whole slew of people who could potentially be bad actors, but then ended up, but they did leave in that bill, they did leave the option to file a work comp claim as it relates to COVID. And they also didn't touch OSHA either. But that's really easy to do when you know that OSHA is not taking this pandemic seriously. It's also really easy to do when you know that the work comp commissioner here in the state is probably not likely to rule in a worker's favor when it comes to a work comp case in regards to COVID. So, they were able to pass their immunity bill and say, look, we didn't do anything to the worker aspect of it, knowing that the people that they put in charge are going to do what they want. Because that's another thing that's really important to underscore here, whether we're talking about the president or whether we're talking about the governor or whoever it is. It's not just that person on the ballot that you're voting for. You're voting for all the people that they put in charge of things. And right now we've got an NLRB that doesn't work for us. We've got, at the state for public sector workers, we've got a PERB that doesn't work for us, a Public Employee Relations Board, which is the NLRB, so to speak, for public sector workers in the state. We've got, an OSHA at the federal and at the state levels. It's not working for workers right now. So it's not just Donald Trump or Joe Biden's name on the ballot. It's the people that they're going to put in charge of various agencies and that they're going to appoint to things. And right now, I think when we look at especially at president, when we look at the two choices that we have, it's clear to us that the type of people that a Vice President Biden would put in charge if he became president, in charge of the NLRB or members of the NLRB, or the Supreme Court, or you name it, they're going to be worker friendly. And whatever President Trump's rhetoric is about jobs overseas and things like that, the proof is in the pudding. And what we've seen is that he has appointed people to all kinds of positions that are anti-labor. And that speaks volumes to us about what his priorities really are.
Speaking of who our elected officials put in charge or into roles, the work comp for shoulder, there's attorneys and workers going forward to challenge the law when it comes to a shoulder and trying to get a shoulder back as a body of a whole injury, so it's more money going back to the worker.
Yep.
And I read an article from Pete, or that Pete wrote, and in that article there was I forget the place that did the research, but said it was estimated at 1.8 million annually. That's what costs workers that that have a shoulder injury. It's cost them that much money annually since 2018. And as these challenges move through the courts, they're ultimately going to get to the Iowa Supreme Court. I was wrong earlier where I was telling people that it's already been to the court, and I reread my email, and I don't think it's been there yet, but the commissioner has struck down a challenge, so it's going to be appealed and later go through the courts. When it gets to the Supreme Court with who's there, that as I segue from this question to the next one, has already not ruled in the favor of workers. I just don't have confidence that the judges, especially the judges on the Supreme Court that's on the ballot, is going to rule in our favor when those challenges get there.
Yeah, that's a very astute observation, Roy. So we have uh, the Iowa Federation of Labor has not made any endorsement when it comes to what should be done when it comes to those to the judges on the back of the ballot, the four Supreme Court judges. And I think that there's a split view on this. And it goes something like, we can vote these people out, and then Governor Reynolds is going to have a opportunity to appoint new anti-labor judges to it anyway. There's some of us who think that, first of all, they've done us wrong over and over, not just on collective bargaining, but on so many decisions. They need to be held accountable. And I made my choice about how I personally was going to vote on that, and I personally didn't feel that they deserved retention. But that's a choice that that's something that everybody needs to think really long and hard about. How we should go about dealing with this whole situation. But the long answer here is that when it comes down to it, in 2022, we are going to have to make a change at the gubernatorial level, and if we are able to do that, then we can start to turn the courts back into our favor. I think there's this view out there that whether it's the United States Supreme Court or the Iowa Supreme Court or you name it, the judges are somehow nonpartisan or apolitical, and they're just above the fray and everything like that. And they're not. They're just as partisan as anybody else. And these judges, whether it's on whether what we'll see on work comp, I have a feeling how they're going to rule on that, but whether it's that or whether it's how they ruled on collective bargaining, how they ruled on return to learn, different things like that, I think we can safely say that these are anti-labor judges, and it's hard to imagine that they would produce worse rulings since they all seem to go against us.
Yeah, and speaking of going against us, Iowa Supreme Court, voted to uphold the revised collective bargaining law, which gutted Chapter 20 and eliminated what public sector unions can bargain over. The change in this law was meant to weaken public sector unions. What have you seen, Charlie? Has it? I guess did they accomplish what they set out to accomplish?
Well, so I think they have in some ways, yes, and in other ways, I don't think that it's going according to their plan. Just this week, the recertification elections, and these recertification elections, they happen 1 year before a contract expires. And the recertification elections basically is that everybody in the bargaining unit, members and non-members, all vote as to whether or not they want to retain the union as their bargaining representative. And if you don't vote, then, the state's going to vote for you, and that automatically casts a no vote. So it's this year, I think we saw again, this is the fourth year in a row, we have seen an overwhelming response from union members and non-union members, and the response is this: they love their public sector, they love public employee unions. Just So just the figures from this year for people who took the time to vote, there were 29,888 people who voted to retain the unit and 370 who voted against. And, when an election's like 98, almost 99% to 1%, I don't see a reason that we still have to go through these every single year. Now, there were a couple of bargaining units that weren't recertified, but as a whole, every single state unit was recertified, and almost every single other unit was public sector unit was recertified as well. So, it's not having the intended effect there of getting rid of bargaining units. What it is doing is making that, since the union does have to pay for the election, they have to pay for everybody, whether they're voting or not voting, and they have to pay for members and non-members. It costs an enormous amount of money, and it costs an enormous amount of staff time where staff can be servicing members. So, there is a cost to it. It is not a great thing that exists, but it hasn't totally decimated the public sector in that way. The law has had an effect on membership, and part of the reason why it has is because they took out the ability for unions to be able to have dues deduction. So for you, perhaps your dues just come right out of your check, and you don't have to take a check down to the hall or stop and write out a check and mail it or whatever. It just was automatically deducted. That went away. Now you can still deduct for United Way, or and I'm not saying that those should go away. You can still deduct all kinds of different things, but you just can't deduct union dues from your paycheck. That's something that has really hurt public sector unions. And there's been a whole host of other things that were terrible about that law too that need to be overturned, and most of which is the fact that the only mandatory subject of bargaining is base wage. Everything else, there are a few everything else is excluded with the exception of about 2 or 3 things. But when you have a contract that used to be pretty long, and now you're looking at a 1-page contract and it's just the base wage, a lot of people look at that and say, and it's the wrong philosophy, but they look at it and say, well, I'm not, what good is this union doing for me? And unfortunately, that's that's what a lot of people are left to judge by. So unions have to look at things in a different way and provide services in a different way. And I think a lot of unions are adapting and doing the best that they possibly can. But I know that was a long answer to your question, but yes, it's having its intended effect, but it's not killed anybody yet. We still have time to turn this around. We still have time. We can do it.
And I think, Charlie, just to pull it all together as far as elections go, I mean, I think from our private sector, we need to look at this and say, okay, I mean, I'm proud of what those people have done in the public sector and how they've maintained their units. But if we don't do something, and we have these NLRB, these appointments you were talking about, this is the kind of examples out there that can come to our roost on our porch here. And what it amounts to is you get all the yes votes, and then you got the no votes. But if they've got 20 people that don't vote, those go into the no column, like you said. And it's just, the cards are stacked against you. And like you said, the the dues deduction, I mean, that's huge for us, having the payroll deduction for dues and just trying to service your membership. And all this time, every year gets taken away. So, I mean, that from an election standpoint, that's one thing we've got to look at, what they did here in the state of Iowa. And is that an idea that gets used somewhere else down the road? And if we don't elect some people, right people, we're gonna see that on the private sector if we're not careful.
Brad, you are totally correct, and that is one of the things that I'm very worried about if we were to go to a anti-worker trifecta at the national level, because enemies of organized labor have looked at Iowa and Wisconsin and Florida and these other states where these laws have been passed, and they see what's happened to union membership in these states, and yeah, they don't look at private sector unions as being special or anything like that. And if they could do to the steel workers or the auto workers or you name it, what they've done to public sector units, whether it's AFSCME or PPME and the painters or Teamsters or SEIU, fill in the blank. If they could do that to them, they wouldn't hesitate for a second to impose the same restrictions on private sector unions, including United Steelworkers. So you're dead on, Brad. It is the union is on the ballot this year. It is every year, but it's definitely on the ballot this year.
Speaking of that, Charlie, I would like to focus in on a couple areas where I believe union or what unions do is on the ballot. So what would you have to say for like right to work, whether either it's a national right to work or like, say, I saw a headline and I didn't read the article, but if maybe Biden wins, maybe there's something done at a federal level against right to work. And then when you're talking about the NLRB, they continue to attack poor Scabby the Rat and seem to want to do away with him. So the union's ability, I guess, to reach the public and convey their messages under attack also.
It's everything that goes before the NLRB. I mean, when you have it's messaging, it's the ability. I mean, I never thought that Scabby the Rat would be something that they would outlaw, but of course they will. And it just goes to show you that we are so many decisions. Again, back to what I was talking about, is it's not just Trump and it's not just Biden that's on the ballot. It's these folks that they put in charge of things. And who's on the NLRB is not something that is thought about by most of USW 105's membership probably every day. But it has a profound impact. It has a profound impact on everything from how the union's able to communicate to health and safety regulations to, I mean, you name it, to the decisions, to whether or not a unit can be organized. If you look at these Grinnell College students who were successful in an organizing drive, but then stopped and didn't take their petition to the NLRB to be recognized because they knew that it would get shut down and that there would be, and they had a lot of courage in doing this, but they knew that they would not only be shut down, but that it would set a precedent that that student workers, who are still workers, but student workers wouldn't be able to organize. It just so much is decided by these bureaucrats. And if you want to talk about, President Trump hasn't done anything with the deep state one way or the other. All he's done is replace whatever he calls the deep state with his own deep state. It's just people who are against the people who are against the average worker. And it certainly shows in all of the things that you've been talking about, Roy and Brad.
I guess one more. I know we're getting a little long here, but one more, and I think at the federal level, Charlie, healthcare is certainly on the ballot, and it affects everybody. It certainly affects workers. I think maybe some people might think, well, I got good union healthcare, it may not affect me, but I believe there's some things that will affect them that maybe is not quite out there, like pre-existing conditions. That's maximum caps, covering kids to 26. That's a huge benefit, and then trying to close the prescription drug loophole in Medicare prescription drugs. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, you just laid it all out there, Roy. I mean, you just all of those things are on the ballot. And it's not just that. I mean, we have a Supreme Court case coming up here shortly after the election where a lot of those things may be considered. And if an insurance, I mean, a lot of what the Affordable Care Act or Obamacare really was health insurance reform. It really wasn't a lot of health care reform, so to speak. And so there's a lot of adjustments to health insurance and the way health insurance regulations uh, were enacted and how they relate to regular people. And all of those things that you just named, I can name somebody, and I'm sure you can, I'm sure Brad can, I'm sure many of your listeners, they can all name somebody who was positively affected by all of those things. And we keep, and I've heard for, well, at least 4 years from the president and longer from the Republican Party that they have a plan to replace the Affordable Care Act, but we still haven't seen it. I don't know. I'm waiting for it. I'm waiting to see what it looks like, but we don't even have an alternative healthcare plan to compare what President Biden, a potential President Biden, is offering, which is basically what he's saying is take the things that you just mentioned, let's keep them in place and build off of it. And not only would you be able to build off it, but you would be able to, if you didn't have employer-based health insurance, or if your employer had a health care coverage that wasn't particularly great, you would have the option of buying into a public system, such as Medicare or something like it. It seems entirely reasonable to me, and for the private sector to have some competition, I don't think competition's a bad thing whatsoever when it comes to healthcare, especially in a state like Iowa where Wellmark, I think, has, gosh, probably 78% of the market or something crazy high like that. They, I love my insurance through Wellmark, but it doesn't mean that they couldn't have some competition that would make things better. And any private health insurance, if they can save a buck by denying you health care, they're going to do it because they're companies. That's what they do. They want to make money.
So I only got a couple more questions for you.
Sure.
So where can people find a list of labor endorsed candidates? And if you could, quick, tell people what goes into picking those candidates.
Sure. So as far as the Iowa Federation of Labor, AFL-CIO, so first of all, you can find on our webpage, you can find a link to where our endorsed candidates are. And our webpage is just iowaaflcio.org. And there's a drop down section under, I believe it's under election 2020. If you just click on election 2020, it'll tell you there's a voter guide here, and it says click here for union endorsed candidates, and it'll tell you everybody from U.S. Senate President down to Iowa House, Iowa Senate, county endorsed candidates, and so on. So that's the easiest way to find it. We also send out to members through a newspaper that talks about in our centerfold there. It talks about who all the endorsed candidates are. But as far as endorsements go, it's not like uh, I sit around, or myself and our secretary treasurer Pete Hurd sit around and just decide who it is that we want to endorse, or even our executive board, which includes Brad. We don't just sit around and say, "Hey, let's endorse this person because we like them." It's a multi-step process. This year, we decided to include a worker academy, and so we thought, you know, these candidates, they'll go and spend hours with bankers or credit unions or um, and you name the group, they'll go spend time with them, but it doesn't. They should be able to spend some time with us and learn more about labor issues. And a lot of people said, well, I don't think they will. They already know everything there is to know, or at least the incumbents sure know everything there is to know. But we had 100% participation from our incumbents, um, at least that were Democrats. The Republicans chose not to participate, even though they were all invited. Um, and after you go through that, you get a questionnaire. And the questionnaire and the Workers Academy weren't weren't just based off of what do I think, or what does Pete or anybody else in this office um, at the state federation think. It was done through interviews and questions that we posed to affiliate leaders. And I got to say that, Brad, thank you very much for your participation in it, because you were featured prominently because you had so many great things to say. But if you're able to go through this Workers Academy, which most of it was done on video, and so thankfully during the pandemic, we were able to do a lot of these online. If you're able to do that, learn about labor issues, fill out a questionnaire, and you can say that you can agree with us um, most of the time, like 70% of the time at least, um, then you are eligible for an endorsement. But that still doesn't mean that you get the endorsement. After that, then we still have a convention that's held in April, and uh, uh, that's held before the primary, but after the filing deadline. And locals from all across the state, from every union that belongs to the state federation, is invited, and we vote on it. And it's not just 51% that you have to get for an endorsement. You have to get 2/3 for an endorsement. So I think it's a high bar, but I think it's appropriate that if we're going to say that somebody's a labor endorsed candidate from the Iowa AFL-CIO, I think that 2/3 of the unions and the locals that are voting on it, I think that that's appropriate to have such a high bar. And so that's our endorsement process. And I know it took a little bit of a while for me to explain it, but I think it's really important for people to know that it's not just, hey, um, we decide that we're friends with Democrats or friends with this Republican or that Republican or whatever, and that's how the endorsement happens. That's not how it works at all. Everybody gets together and votes on it, and not only does somebody need to get 51%, they need to get a super majority of all of the locals that attend the endorsement convention.
All right, Brad, Mike, I only got one more question for Charlie. So, do you guys got anything, or?
No, good job, Charlie, and thanks for coming on.
Yeah, Charlie, thank you. I agreed with most of what you said, except for anything about Brad.
You know what? I also, while I have you, I gotta thank you so much um, for the leadership that you do provide in the Grouse, in the Great River Area Labor Federation, Brad, and Julia McMeekin, who does a fantastic job over there. Right now, through Election Day, we have Get Out the Vote going on. I was just over there yesterday and dropped off about 6,000 or so sticky notes that are just going to go on people's doors and just say, here's who to vote for. And it's got a link that says if you need to know who the endorsed candidates are, here they are. And anything you can do to help get out the vote, whether it's that or whether you're interested in phone banking, just let us know. Phone banking is not as fun of a thing to do, but phone banking is the way right now that we are able to actually have conversations with members. So, since the pandemic, we've not really wanted to have. I wasn't feeling comfortable asking any volunteer to go door to door during a pandemic because you never know if you're going to go to a house and talk to somebody with COVID, and I certainly don't want any member to ever get sick volunteering, trying to do the right thing. But the flip side of that is that the way that we are, the way we have to, and the way that we're able to make those contacts and have conversations with union members is on the phone. So whatever you're able to do, whether it's get out there and do lit drop or these sticky note GOTV things, or whether it's phone banking, we need your help now through Election Day.
All right, Charlie, I left one question off, but I think you'll appreciate it. So
Sure.
my last question to you, Charlie, is DC, Marvel, or The Boys?
Do I what now?
Well, I look at your Facebook page, see that you like comics and superheroes. So which one do you prefer, Marvel, DC, or The Boys?
So here's the thing. I am one of those things. So we are in such serious work all day, and these are 24/7 jobs. And I do have to have something that just where I'm able to kind of shut my brain off every once in a while, and still, kind of have something where there's some sort of an escape to it. And so, yeah, I am a 40-year-old who still does read comics, but I gotta say that it depends on what mood I'm in. I haven't actually had time to read a whole lot this year, but I think that Marvel and DC are fun. They're always going to be fun, but I think that things like The Boys or Watchmen or things that are critical of superhero or superhero culture and even superhero worship, so to speak, in this country and around the world, and just how much money is made off of some of these characters and things. I really do enjoy that as well, because I'm not going to give any spoilers away, but you do just kind of got to watch some of those things as well, because a lot of it really does show the amount of influence that, especially The Boys, really shows the amount of influence that corporations have in social media, especially this last season, that social media really does have on the way people act and think. And if nothing else, The Boys is a little bit over the top and a whole lot of things, but I guarantee you'll come away thinking about it one way or the other. So,
Yeah, I question whether or not I should have let my 13-year-old watch it. He had to turn his head a few times, but it was certainly entertaining, and at least in our house, I mean, he'll watch any Marvel movie that comes out, but if he knows it's DC, which he'll do his research, he'll be like, nope, I'm not interested. He won't even give it a chance. Even some of the good ones.
DC, to me, I like the comics better, but their movies have been terrible. Marvel, I'm not as big of a fan of the comics, but they make much better movies. And the thing about like the boys or Watchmen is it takes no prisoners with anybody. So to each their own.
Well, with that, Charlie, appreciate you taking time and coming on. It was a great interview.
Awesome. Well, hey, anytime you guys need anything, you know how to get a hold of us. And only a few days left here. Let's go out and get it done. We can do it.
Thanks, Charlie.
All right. Thanks, guys. You have a good one.
All right, you too. Thanks again.
All right. Later, brothers.
All right, bye. Back after the interview to close the show.
Good interview.
And one thing, I'm glad I wrote it down because I would have forgot. A happy belated birthday to friend of the show, John Lepley.
Happy birthday, John. And in honor of John's birthday, I had mentioned on the last show that we're going to start a new part of the show called Lee's Recipe Corner. So in honor of that, our first recipe will be a birthday cake. So I'll have to get with Lee and those that have helped me with getting Lee involved, and we'll get the recipe out there next time.
Oh, you might want to call Lee's wife and ask him what kind of cake he likes.
I absolutely will.
Donut filled.
Besides donuts. Hey, Shawn.
I don't have headphones.
It doesn't matter. You're still using them. Where can people find us?
How about you answer that this time?
Well, Shawn, people can find us on our Facebook page,
Yep.
Apple Podcasts,
Yep.
Podcast Addict for Android, iHeartRadio
App. The iHeartRadio app.
for not wanting to do it. You're sure being bossy. Spotify,
App.
radio.com,
App.
Libsyn.com, the Locals website, Brad, or the men's restroom here at Local 105. You can get one of them nice Local 105 pint glasses, which we gotta get a new one with a new logo. We gotta do that we should do
We're
that
working
every
on it.
year.
We're working on
We
it.
need to do that every year.
We should, yeah.
We
We missed a year, so
got-
now
That's okay. We're working on it.
We got people that want to collect them.
Collectors now, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah. we could get one with a Steel Revolution.
Oh yeah, I'd
Design
like that.
on it.
I'd
That'd
like
be a
that.
hot
Oh,
item right there.
And see, we own that design kind of because Troy did that for us. So
Yeah, so we can
yeah,
do it.
We got one.
You got it.
We got one.
See, we can put that on the side of the.
We should do it. We should do a T-shirt.
But see, there again, Brad thinks it's his idea.
As long as it gets it done, I'm fine. We should do a T-shirt and a hoodie too. I'd like that.
Yeah.
I like that.
I'd like that.
I like that.
All right.
All
Too
right.
bad we don't have. I can't remember who's John's favorite, like, singer. That we don't do that anymore. But it's too bad they didn't have like a birthday song. Wasn't it like Kenny Loggins or
I thought
Rush
it
or
was Elton
something?
John or something, but
I
anyway.
thought it was like Kenny Loggins or
Prince.
Rush or something.
We need some Halloween music.
Oh,
you
you-
spooktacular.
You can probably find that.
Well, you're
for
wearing your
free.
mask today, so that's good enough.
I know. Yeah.
All right. Well, and
Everybody be safe out there trick or treating.
yep. And when they say trick or treat, don't forget to say something good about your union.
Every day.
Steel Revolution is a production of Steelworkers 105, Bettendorf, Iowa.